Köping. Okay, so I just watch it. Make sure it keeps going.
Yeah, like maybe be like a little usher. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. And if you find any like make sure to ignore any messages or like if there's a call.
Yeah.
You know. So. Okay.
Jag tror hon har fått en marknadsföringsbudget fart på det här.
Men nu är han från affärsvärlden.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, I think it's. Okay. I don't know. It's not. It's happening. Come. Yeah. Let me do it. I don't know. Oh, there's something going wrong with this. I don't know if I should. Is that Oh yeah, I did Jordan's stuff at the end. So okay.
Yeah. Translation, but something wrong.
I don't know why.
Wrong.
So for some reason it's not working. But sounds good. Okay. She can go first?
She'll go first, yeah, but she's not here.
Yeah. Is she not on the Zoom yet? Okay, so. Okay, well. Should we give it like maybe 1 minute? Okay. Well, everyone is waiting. So welcome everyone. Okay, hold on. I don't know when it's being a little strange. Good.
Yeah.
Should I?
How does it know? Can you hear me?
Oh, maybe you.
Edward, can you hear me? Yes. No? Hello? Anybody can hear me? Yes? No?
Hold on. Sorry, a little bit of a technical difficulty right now. I don't know. My screen's acting a little wonky. Come on, please. I did. It's in the end of that. Okay. It's like in the end. That's all I saw. But I don't know if it do it in the same. Oh, she also sent you the presentation. So I really love it. So everyone, in the meantime, while we try to get through these technical issues, feel free to chat with one another. You know, it is the last event of the year for everyone, so feel free. Yeah. Let's see here.
Is that the thing? That's the outside.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so that's the camera, the little guy there.
Yeah, it's camera. It will like.
And a microphone.
Oh.
Is it like a conference microphone as well?
Yeah, so it'll detect who's talking and will automatically zoom the camera onto you.
Stare at
Yeah.
the person. Oh my god.
That's
For
not
some reason,
okay.
I'm not able to.
That's creepy. That's fun.
We actually found this through the radar.
Oh.
Wait, are you presenting on your screen? Yeah.
Som jag ser någonting nu så kommer de gå.
Då kommer det här. Det kommer it's coming like this.
We are waiting. Maybe.
Maybe we can go on introducing ourselves.
Okay. Well, I guess now's a good time for everyone to introduce ourselves. So, my name is Fernando. I am a research analyst with VALUENEX. I graduated from Harvard earlier this year, studying for my master's in management. We met at a career fair at MIT. A lot of Harvard students go there often for career fairs, and it has been nice to meet everyone here so far. This is my 4th time organizing the Insight Cafe event. So I wanted to thank everyone who were able to come, and looking forward to showcase to you all what is in store for next year.
This is Jiang. I'm CEO of VALUENEX, in charge of this year's operation. Thank you so much for coming to our office, and we created this Inside Cafe, the innovation community, actually last September, and it's been more a year. So I'm glad that we continue, and thank you so much for coming in. And it's really interesting topic. I'd love to share what we have and also what you're doing.
Well, my name is Margareta Banda. I'm in Sweden. I'm a member of the Swedish American Chamber. I've been invited, but I'm also a journalist, so I'm covering things like tech trends for today for a Swedish magazine called Hashtag. Hello everyone, my name is Kali. I'm from Hitachi, and I'm in charge of corporate strategy. I'm in the corporate strategy division, and I'm in charge of both innovation activities, mostly in investment as well as the strategic partnerships with startups. So I'm interested in the trends coming up next year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
My name is Melly. I'm a recent graduate from a Swedish university and just moved here 6 months ago. And now I'm part of the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce here in Palo Alto. And I've been to a couple of these Inside Cafe events this fall. It's always super interesting. I'm really excited to hear about the trends there.
Hi everyone. Quick question. Is that real-time translation on the screen?
That's
Wow. Cool.
Welcome to the Valley, right?
Yeah. I'm in the future. Perfect. So my name is Eric. I'm a fellow at Nordic Innovation House. So I'm here for 6 months from Sweden, researching the trends of the future. And specifically, I'm into AI. So I'm having a look at if there's something on there, but just very curious about this event. Literally, the first time, super honored and glad to be here. So looking forward.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabel. I'm a junior at Stanford, and I am a data analyst intern here at VALUENEX. I've only been here for a very short time, and this is my first Inside Cafe, but I'm looking forward to more to come.
Hi everyone, I'm also Eric from Sweden, two Erics from Sweden, and I'm an associate at the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce as well, and I've been here for soon 4 months now. And I'm also studying a Master's in Management, and I'm finishing that up this spring coming up. So, planning on staying here while writing my Master's thesis, and I'm looking forward to the tech and social trends. It's sort of my niche. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michael Tarantosi. I'm with KPMG. I'm Director of IP Consulting. It's a new management consulting practice at KPMG.
Hi everyone, I'm Mats Andersson, Executive Director for Swedish American Chamber of Commerce here. And we love to do events together with Jung and VALUENEX. It's fantastic. I think every time we do it, love it.
My name is Andreas, and I'm an intern at the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce. Been here for 4 months, and it's my 4th Inside Cafe. Fernando and Dijon always does a great job hosting, so looking forward to hearing what's in store for us today.
I'm Sean McDonough. I'm also an intern at the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce. I just moved here from Paris, and it's also my first Inside Cafe. I'm looking forward to watching the presentation. Bienvenido a esta.
Hi, my name is Radhan Thapa. I'm from Made in America. I'm working as a research and development engineer in our Open Innovation Program, and we're working together with VALUENEX, and I'm curious for today's discussion.
My name is Alan Sato. I'm from the same company, Made in America. I've been for about 2.5 years here, and my responsibility is the general manager of the open innovation activity. And our company is a Japanese manufacturer company to manufacture the power electronics and electrical system for utility, power utility, and water treatment and railway system. And my interview from the VALUENEX is here on the website, and last week's Gio-san published. So please see that. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I work at VALUENEX as a research engineer with a focus on AI and NLP. I think it's my 3rd year at VALUENEX, but it's my first time presenting here in Psychotech, so we're excited to share some insights that we found through the radar and next week every morning.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Aya Yoshida. I'm from Hitachi, the Japanese IT company. And my job is startup collaboration and business development. And I just arrived here in October, so finally settled in. So I try to get social things right now. Yes, nice to meet you. We are same company. Oh yeah.
Thanks for joining.
And finally, we have our special keynote speaker for today. Her name is Jordan Dahl. Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself and explain a little more?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, and nice to see all the Europeans in the mix. Welcome. I am a journalist and a reporter for over 12 years. I spent 5 of those years in Beijing, China. I'm reporting on technology for an American audience for Forbes. And then I worked in foreign policy for a while at the Carnegie Endowment, a global think tank, and focused on U.S.-China relations, nuclear security, all the super easy fun stuff. And for the last 4 years, I have been at LinkedIn. Reporting on everything from entrepreneurship to most recently covering sustainability.
Very nice. It's nice to meet you, Jordan. Thank you for coming. So yeah, I guess we will proceed with the technological and social trends, starting with you, Jordan. Would you like to share your slides? as well? Can I share your screen?
Yes, we could.
Of course. It's a little late for you.
Can everyone hear me okay? It's breaking up a little bit for me, which is fine as long as you all can hear me.
Perfectly, yeah.
That's perfect.
Great. Sorry if I cut anyone off, there's a little bit of a delay, but as long as you all can hear me, no worries.
Jordan, would you like to share your screen? Or do
Sorry,
you
I'll
want us
listen
to
to you
share
for a
your
second.
screen?
I think she's trying to.
Should I share my screen?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Perfect. All right, now see if all right.
We can see the master presentation. So we see.
That's not good.
Yeah. Oh, okay, now
There we go.
Yes. We can see it clearly now.
Sorry, y'all are breaking up again.
Okay. Is it? Is the Wi-Fi under?
You can type in the chat.
Is VALUENEX visiting? VALUENEX. On it. Okay. Can you hear us okay, Jordan? Or
Hi, there you are. Yeah, now I can hear you.
okay. Yeah. Perfect. That works.
So Jordan, please go ahead.
Great. Sorry for all the technological issues. Not my day for it, I guess. Okay, one quick second here.
Okay.
Okay, so I've already given you all a little bit of an introduction to me. You would be forgiven for not knowing that LinkedIn has a news team. I truthfully didn't know that my team existed until they started recruiting me. So I thought I would give you all a little bit of background into the news team at LinkedIn, what we do and how we work, before jumping into the trends. So a little bit about us. We help build the global workforce through news, ideas, community. We do this in a couple of different ways. There are journalists like myself who actually create original content. And then there's another part of the team that works with people like you all to help you post more and find community and share your expertise on the platform and get smarter in your jobs and act as a bit of a digital water cooler, if you will. We are a global team. There are over 200 of us. This map is actually probably a little bit outdated. We are expanding into Africa and Southeast Asia as well. And we have over 20 different languages now, which is kind of crazy. But the way that you are probably most familiar with my team is if you are on desktop on the homepage or in search on mobile, you'll see this box called LinkedIn News. And part of the team aggregates all of the headlines throughout the day and basically acts as a one-stop shop for you in knowing what is happening in the world and why it is relevant to you, to your career, to business, to the economy. They'll get experts to share their viewpoints in there and just help everyone get a little bit smarter about what is happening in the world and why we need to care about it. I mentioned before that we do create a lot of our own news, including all of LinkedIn's lists, which you are probably familiar with. LinkedIn Top Startups, that is one of them. Top companies. I have a newsletter that goes out focusing on sustainability, the business behind it, what the trends are, and what skills people need to get into the industry. And in December every year, we all get together, all the reporters, all the editors, happening in the coming year. So great timing to have this conversation. This year's list, we had 41 ideas, which is not normal. Normally we have 20, maybe 25, but there is just so much happening in the world that we really could not distill it down any further than 41. That is a little bit too much to get into for today, so I broke it down into 4 main topics that I want to dive into that I think are going to be the most relevant for everyone.
So we're so sorry, Jordan. You're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. I was saying that
Maybe you should turn up video for this part.
Yeah, maybe if you can turn off your video, Jordan.
with headline, important thing. Sounds good. 1 second.
Maybe we'll get stable internet for 2023.
Yeah.
Too much on the future.
Palo Alto in general.
I know, maybe we can eventually get stable internet, that'd be great. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and just chat through what is sort of happening, if that works.
Okay. Sounds good. Wait, we do, you are no longer sharing your screen, but I don't know if that was intentional or not.
It's not, let me try this again.
Okay, now we can see it. We can see it okay.
Okay, cool. So I was talking about the labor market, and what's really important to know about this is what is happening in Silicon Valley with the layoffs is really happening in a bubble. That is not happening across industries and across the entire country. For a lot of industries, they are actually continuing to grow, maybe not as quite a rapid a pace, but companies are not having the big layoffs that we're seeing in tech. People spent a lot of money and time getting talent over the last 2 years. It was really expensive, they were hard to find, and they are not willing to let them go so easily. And so they're really kind of batting down the hatches and waiting for this to pass. A couple of big trends coming out of the pandemic that are going to be here to stay and will grow in the coming years. One is hybrid. Regardless of what industry you're in, and it's not just tech, pretty much nobody is going to an office 5 days a week anymore. What does that mean for businesses? It means that they need less real estate, they're investing less in offices, new technologies to help connect people, like, stable internet, which would be really great to have. All of that is going to be just growing in importance. And there are a lot of people who are looking for remote-only jobs, but there are even fewer of them now than there were a year ago. So companies are less willing to do remote-only, but there is an opportunity for businesses if they can make that work, and that labor could be cheaper if they are looking outside the coast, Silicon Valley or New York. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it could be cheaper to get labor. You're not going to have as much overhead of having office space. So those are 2 things that are really going to continue into 2023. If you talk to any economist, including EY, everyone's expecting a recession. This is not this is not going to be a devastating recession that is going to impact the economy for the next decade. The Fed has started slowing down recent inflation is starting to cool off. Yesterday, new data came out for November that inflation grew 7.1%, which is still an astronomical figure, but less than October 7.7. And the thing to keep in mind about that is inflation lags interest rates by about 2 to 3 months. So whatever the Fed is doing now, we'll see the impact of that in inflation and pricing in about 3 months' time, which is also why the Fed is starting to slow down raising interest rates. And that has been really good news for economists, economies. So yeah, we are still expecting a recession. We might even already be in one, but it's not going to be as devastating as we fear. The second, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure, no worries. So you are very familiar with all of these companies. What they have in common is that they were started out of the Great Recession. You talk to any economist, they will tell you that a downturn is a really, really good time to start a business. Investors still have money, they're just being more discerning of the companies that they are going to invest in. The last decade, we saw this trend for really investing in the founder. Maybe the business wouldn't work out, but we're investing in the person. We think that they are really smart, they have great ideas, they're gonna build a company. Maybe it won't be this one, but at some point in time, they're gonna, hit the gold mine. That is no longer the case. We're seeing, a lot of not just investors rethinking that idea, but consumers as well. Overall trust in business leaders is going down in the general public, even though they are still looking to them to, make good decisions, whether that is in business or in social good. The other thing that we're seeing is an end of this grow at all costs mentality. And it's really coming down to basics. Do you have a real business model? What is your path to profitability? What is the need in the business market? And how are you going to reach consumers and start really getting that cash flow going? So it's more of a step back to basics that we haven't really seen over the last decade, and it takes a while for entrepreneurs to come to terms with, especially those who started in their careers at some of these companies like Airbnb, Facebook, Twitter, where the whole mentality was just grow as fast as you can, gain market share, and then focus on profitability. So that's really being turned on its head. So for those who are going out seeking investing, those are the real questions that investors are going to be asking. But there is definitely plenty of money still in the market. I was talking to investors a couple weeks back at the conference, and that was kind of the takeaway. Yeah, we still have plenty of cash. We're just being a little bit more cautious about how we deploy it. That being said, one really big opportunity is around sustainability. For the past few months, I've been at conferences in Sonoma, Palm Springs, Toronto, and everyone is talking about sustainability. Not in terms of climate change and is the world on fire, although that's certainly part of it, but more around what is the business behind this, and what are the companies that are creating new technologies, and where is this going to create real investment opportunity? Which leads me into my third point. Climate is really, really big money. So this was a bit of a niche story, so I'm not sure how familiar you all are with it. But climate scientists and businesses have discovered that on the seabed floor are these things called nodules. And they can potentially be mined for rare earth minerals like cobalt and nickel. Why is that important? Because of the electric vehicle boom that we've seen over the past year. We don't have enough supply to meet demand. But more than that, we're also seeing this shift into energy storage in general. So when you think about a battery, it's not just what's going to power our computers or what's going to power our cars, but more in terms of storage in general of, okay, we have wind, we have solar, we have nuclear, and how can we actually store all of this energy to be used during off times? when, the sun isn't shining. And so that is the next sort of wave in battery development, but you still need those rare earth minerals in order to create them. Enter deep sea bed mining. Now, any climate scientist is going to tell you this is a really, really, really bad idea. Businesses are still mostly going ahead. And there are more companies that are looking into things like this. So coming out of that, the really big takeaway really is not just seabed mining, but energy storage and what companies are going to be at the forefront of that. The second is around food. So vertical farms have been around for a really long time. Lab-based meat is starting to become a thing. Plant-based alternatives are becoming more popular. But really what is fueling all of this is less about food availability and actual climate change and its impact on the environment than consumer demand. People across socioeconomic spectrums, they want healthier food and they want fresher food. So they're no longer interested in food that's grown maybe in South America and then flown to Nebraska. They really wanted to have it picked in the last couple of days, and that is fueling more investment into this space. One of these companies is called Gotham Greens. They started in Brooklyn. They now have greenhouses in, I believe, 12 different states. They just got $300 million more in funding, and they're creating more greenhouses. And their business model is basically they create a greenhouse outside of a major city center. Like a new one is going up outside Denver, Colorado. And what that does is enables them to drive 2-3 hours to other food deserts while also servicing really large cities like Denver, Colorado Springs, cities like that. They focus on lettuce. Something that I learned is about 90% of lettuce in North America is actually grown in California and then flown out, driven to other communities. So they're turning that on its head and growing it in these greenhouses and then distributing it so that your lettuce is only 2-3 days old and being driven maybe 2 hours rather than across the country. There are other companies that are looking into this and trying to scale these sorts of technologies. Same thing with lab-based meat. The FDA, a couple weeks back, just approved their first lab-based meat. It hasn't come to market yet, but it has at least been pre-approved by the FDA. None of these things are at scale where you can go into any grocery store and find these sort of alternatives. That is really going to be the next step in how investors are looking into and thinking about this. Next is not just around clothing. BCG did this study around the resale market. You have companies like ThredUp, The Real that have popped up. There's more awareness around the energy cost of fast fashion. But really the larger trend here is around Gen Z and how they are shifting market. They are incredibly focused on sustainability. EY actually did a study of small businesses that used their surveys last year, and they asked them a series of questions about what are you most concerned about? What are you focusing on right now? And at the very bottom of the list was sustainability, which confused them. They went back, they asked, well, why isn't that part of this? And almost to a T, the business owner said, well, we started with that already in mind. That was just sort of baked into our business model from the very beginning. So we have that down. We don't have to worry about that. And what they learned from this is that the businesses that are starting now already are focusing on this because consumers, especially Gen Z, are demanding it. It's the larger companies that are having to shift resources, try to lower their carbon footprint, working with different suppliers, remaking their supply chain to meet this consumer demand. So companies that can help these larger businesses do that cheaper and more efficiently, there's definitely a hole in that market, and we're starting to see more development in that space. And things like reselling clothes. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about China, given my time there. So this one is a little bit more complicated. COVID policy, and one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is how rare this is. Now, protests do happen in China, but they are generally very locally based. And it's around one particular local issue that affects a niche part of the population, and then it either gets resolved or it gets shut down and people move on. We have not seen protests like this that covers borders across China and covers all socioeconomic status since Tiananmen Square 1989. So this is a really, really big deal. We've seen China pare back a little bit of their zero COVID policy, but it's a double-edged sword. Vaccination rates are super low in China, particularly among the elderly, and the Sinovac vaccine is not as effective as the mRNA ones, which China is saying that they do not want to introduce into the population. What does this mean for businesses going forward? It means that supply chains are continuing to be a really big problem and will become a bigger problem in the coming year because as China scales back from zero COVID, they are going to have a lot more outbreaks and we're going to see further production stalling. We already saw Apple coming out talking about this. Apple has finally started re-examining their supply chain and looking at other manufacturing hubs. That has actually been happening for a long time in retail. China's labor market has gotten more expensive over the last few years, and so a lot of retailers have shifted manufacturing to places like Vietnam that have cheaper labor. So, we're going to see a more adaptation of supply chains and a real focus on that. The last thing that we're going to see, and this is less about business, although it definitely has a business implication, more of a geopolitical one, is what is going to happen with Taiwan. Some history, the backdrop of this is that Xi Jinping has staked his reputation on the zero COVID policy. His whole bargain has been, hey, the CCP, the Communist Party, we have handled COVID so much better than the West. Look at the outbreaks that happened in the US. Look at what happened in Europe. We are best placed to handle this. So his entire reputation is sort of around handling COVID. The other side of this is that there's a bit of a social bargain that happens in China. Yes, there's going to be more censorship, perhaps less freedoms, but you will get more economic opportunity. And that worked for about 3 decades. But the latest generation, they have only ever seen a boom time. Everything's been growing, but now
Jordan, I think you for the last 10 seconds. So sorry for the interruptions, everyone. But oh, is it ours? It's our connection.
Yes. Domestically, you need to have an enemy enter Taiwan, and so we can definitely see heightened tensions around Taiwan in the coming year, and that's going to have a very, very big impact on the tech industry and on semiconductors. That's why we've seen more companies looking to produce them domestically, but I expect that that will continue to be a real flashpoint over the coming 12 months and something to definitely watch. So those are my 4 big buckets of predictions and then things to watch out for in 2023. Obviously, there's way, way more we can talk about, but I wanted to leave some time for questions and discussion.
Well, thank you, Jordan, for the wonderful presentation for 2023 as far as your predictions goes, especially with what's going on here in Silicon Valley and throughout the world. That being said, we will now open it up to the audience. Does anyone here have any questions for Jordan? Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Jordan. Very interesting presentation.
You were talking about tech companies leaving the mentality of just growing at all costs and investors becoming a bit more careful about their investment. Do you see a shift in power from the founders and the management and to the investors?
Definitely, yeah. So something that we saw over the last 10 years, along with this grow at all cost mentality, was around the founder having a lot of control. Like, look at Zuckerberg and his pretty much universal control of the Facebook's board. Investors have wisened up over the past 10 years and seeing how that can lead to not great results and an inability or an unwillingness to shift based on what is happening in the economy. And so this really does shift the balance of power to investors, particularly because there's still plenty of cash, as I mentioned, but they're being more discerning, and so it's not as easy as just, well, okay, then I'll go to the investor down the road if I don't like your terms. So that power has definitely shifted back more toward the investor, and I would expect to see that in the demands placed on founders, and not just what founders have to do in management, but also the kind of stakes that they have to give up in the company. It's got money is available, but it's becoming much more expensive.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm gonna start my video again, see if it will work.
Yeah, sure.
You can always turn it back off if it doesn't.
Well, I'll let you know. Yeah. Beautiful. And enlarge your whole. Okay, you are there. You are the center now of my TV. So,
I have one question.
yes.
Thank you for your presentation, very interesting. I'm curious, last week a lot of discussion about big tech and censorship. I would be curious to see at LinkedIn, what editorial, do you take politics into consideration when you do your editorial distribution of the news?
Sorry, had to turn off my video, just cut off halfway through. I heard the very tail end of that about distribution.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about a lot of discussions last week about tech, the big tech and censorship, and working very closely with one or the other political party. I would be curious to hear how you, when you do put out the LinkedIn news, how politically influenced they are.
It's a good question, especially in today's climate. To be honest, we're not influenced, particularly because we're not a politically focused news team or even platform. We're kind of lucky in that people on LinkedIn will actually sort of police one another, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation, but if things start going off the rails and turning to a political discussion, members will typically, those who've been on the platform for a long time, step in and say, hey, this isn't Facebook, this isn't Twitter. Like, let's keep it professional. It's tied to your career, to your identity. And so there are some dumpster fires that will come across, but it's very different kind of ecosystem from Facebook or Twitter and some of these other social platforms that have a lot of problems. In terms of editorial, we cover politics only in so much as it's a large national thing that people are really invested in. We cover elections, big moments like that, but we're not a breaking news organization, nor do we want to be. There's plenty of other spaces for that, and so we really focus on the business and economics side of things. Okay, what are the business implications for maybe some of these larger political moments, if there is one happening? What are people saying about the economy? What does this mean for your career? What does this mean for your business? So we're not really a politically oriented platform or team.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, a question sort of follow up to that. So yeah, not political, but I mean clearly LinkedIn is an American organization, and just an observation of something I was thinking about now is that how much that's shaping the content on the platform. Like I'm Swedish, and just on a daily basis, like I see a lot of American content, the news, the news stories. They're very influenced by that lens I was wondering, just you in the news team, like, what are the kinds of conversations you have about, you know, bringing like global news or like news from the angles of the people in different news bubbles, so to speak.
In Sweden?
Yeah.
Totally, it's a great question. So one thing that I think we're very fortunate in having is that we are a global news team, and I don't mean that in the sense of, you know, every news organization is global and has global teams, but we're not super siloed. We do actually communicate and talk with one another, and we share stories. So if something big is happening in Europe that Americans need to know about, they will flag it to us, vice versa. There's a lot of open communication that happens, which I think is pretty unique. That was certainly not the case when I was at Forbes. I was very, very siloed and covering Asia, and I didn't have any visibility into what my colleagues in other parts of the world were really focusing on. And that does help us bring more of a different shift of mindset. I think it's also important to note that the platform is very different in each country. So if you look at Germany, for example, they do cover politics far more than we do, because it's also more in the national discourse, and it's such a different environment in terms of what people talk about and what people want to talk about, even within the professional context. So they have more government ministers that are on the platform sharing. Even in Canada, you know, we have Trudeau, who is an influencer and on the platform. We have not had that same strategy in the US because it's a very different kind of ecosystem. So we do go out and solicit experts to start sharing more on the platform, but we target business people and people who are like really experts in investing and economics or in sustainability and what that means for the economy and for the world. We don't ask Biden's team to get into sharing more. We don't go to different cabinet officials and asking them to share more. So it's a very different strategy depending on the country and the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Okay. So you talked about the layoffs in the tech companies, that they are happening mainly here in bubble, Silicon Valley. But I mean, still Silicon Valley is not like just any spot in the world. How will it affect innovation? I mean, still is still the place that a lot of those innovations just spread around the world started.
No, this is a really good question. From our perspective, we see that it's not going to have a huge impact on innovation, because it's not necessarily that companies will not have any resources, it's that they have to be much smarter with the resources that they do have. I actually asked a couple of investors at this, okay, but what about these big moonshot projects to tackle things like climate change and sustainability? Is that going to be getting funding, or are we going to see a drop back in some of these innovations? And the answer was across the board, no. We will always invest in new technologies and things that have, you know, maybe a longer term play, but we see real investment opportunity. And in companies that already exist, it's a bit of a different sort of mindset. We saw them grow really quickly over the pandemic. Oftentimes it was because they just had an influx of cash. There wasn't necessarily a big business need or a strategy behind it, and that is what is fueling a lot of these layoffs. Is they grew too fast, just with the abundance of capital without having a real strategy in mind. And so they're having to be very strategic and think through, okay, what is the market need? What is going to bring in revenue? Inevitably that will lead to more innovation and to new things, new developments. So I wouldn't be worried about the innovation part of it. I think it could take a little bit longer for existing companies as they readjust. You see a lot of reorgs that are happening at companies that are not having layoffs, reevaluating their priorities and what they're focusing on. LinkedIn is not immune to that. They're certainly doing this. But in terms of external, of new companies and new innovations, The word that I'm getting from investors is no. We will always invest in new things, but the pitch is going to be very different. You know, this isn't going to be a half-baked idea from a wonderkind who they think is going to be the next Musk or the next Zuckerberg. It's going to have real demonstration of here's the value that we see, here's where we see this going. Maybe the technology doesn't exist quite yet, but here's our path to creating it.
Okay, thank you.
For those in the back, feel free to come in and sit up front.
Cheers, yes.
Yes, we have a quite a number of chairs. Okay, does anyone else have any more questions?
Could I ask one more question?
Yes, yes, of course.
So the reason that many of those tech companies been so successful here in the Silicon Valley is because they've been able to recruit all over the world, and people have come here on visas. And now when they are when they're laid off, they have to go back to the countries. How do you think this will affect those companies, their possibility to recruit talents in the future?
Yeah, it's absolutely having an impact. And we already saw that it was a pandemic and even sooner because of the Trump administration and their policies toward H-1Bs. Canada has actually been really smart about building up their tech ecospace, and they're investing even more in this. And basically their whole strategy is the U.S.'s loss is Canada's gain. This summer, their technology minister announced a new program to get more AI scientists and experts into the country, basically appealing to those who are on H-1Bs in the U.S., who are having a hard time getting employment, or maybe just want to go somewhere else. And they are giving subsidies, offering money, making it a very easy way of getting visas to go to Canada. I don't know of very many programs in Europe. Perhaps some of the Swedes could fill me in there if there are those sorts of programs, but there is definitely an opportunity for countries that want to build more of a tech ecosystem, taking a page out of Canada's book and really making it a much easier, streamlined process. Because even before Trump, it was not easy getting one of these visas. And the Biden administration has been pretty slow in revamping that and making that smoother process after the Trump years. That being said, I do think that we have seen a real shift in talent distribution in the U.S., and that creates a big opportunities for companies. With remote work, with hybrid work, they can recruit all over the country. They can get different kind of talent, more diverse talent, which has been a really big focus for Silicon Valley of getting more women of color, more minorities, people across socioeconomic backgrounds. And so there is a lot of opportunities there for companies to expand their recruitment efforts. And so I think that's going to reshape Silicon Valley and some of these cities. And that's not to say that Silicon Valley will no longer exist. Silicon Valley will always be here, will always be the hub, but there is opportunity to bring in more talent from other areas.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. So I know journalism is a really research-heavy occupation, and LinkedIn is a tech company. So I'm just wondering if, the doing journalism in a tech company, is it different from doing journalism in a more traditional, like New York Times or Forbes? Is it more like technology involved, and is there like a special methodology in how you conduct journalism research? And also a follow-up question is that, is there like a competition between different journalist publications in the technology? And yeah, that's my question.
It's a really good question, and I honestly had the exact same one when I was interviewing for my job, because I could not wrap my head around a journalist being at a tech company. So yes, there are a lot of differences. One thing that, apart from having job stability, which is really, really nice being a journalist, especially when you look around right now at all the media layoffs that are happening. Is that we are not really in direct competition with other news outlets. So because we are not a breaking news outlet, it's not like we are competing with the New York Times or CNBC for getting a scoop. We really focus on, okay, this event has happened. What is the context and the nuance? We call it the second day story. Okay, this Elon Musk just took over Twitter. What is going to happen in the next week, in the next 2 weeks? How is this going to impact Silicon Valley? How is this going to impact mass investment? So that's really our sort of competitive edge, if you will. And we actually work with journalists at places like the Times, CNN, the Post. Sorry, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so bear with me. But we work with journalists across the country and helping them bring their scoops, bring their news to LinkedIn and sharing it there and helping them find a wider audience, and then getting experts that are on the platform to give their take on it and kind of provide more context and more nuance. In terms of products, so a little bit embarrassing. I remember in orientation, we had our head of HR come in, and she asked everyone what team they were on. And I hadn't really thought about it before she asked, and I just assumed I was under marketing or comms. So I meet my head boss and I end up asking him, like, hey, are we under comms? Where does editorial sit? No, we're under product. What do you mean we're under product? Yeah, we sit under product. We're with all of the engineers, we're on the R&D team. The reason being is because our team is so public facing, we are basically super users of LinkedIn. So we get to work with engineers on building out new products. One that you guys will probably use more now than before is newsletters. That launched, I believe, 3 years ago. And when I first started, the engineers were just building that out. And we were whitelisted for using that and basically giving feedback of, hey, this works, this doesn't. As a member, this is how I would like this to look. It's not very streamlined, I don't understand this layout. And so we work really closely with product managers, with engineers on creating new products and helping them get even better for members. So there is a lot of still traditional journalism, but more on context and nuance. And then there's that other side of it of actually really working on a product and seeing that through kind of a business and technology lens rather than just writing an article and sort of putting it out into the ecosystem and hoping and praying it finds an audience.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, then thank you, Jordan, for this wonderful presentation and being able to answer the questions from the audience as well. There were a lot of great questions, and so I'm just glad you were able to help out and being able to share your insights as well. That being said, I guess now we can move on to Catherine, who will be presenting her own findings that she's seen on the radar, all of which is backed by data.
Thanks guys so much. I'm gonna hop off.
Okay.
I shared my email with you all, so feel free to reach back out. But thanks so much for having me.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. I think I do. Okay, so there we go.
Awesome. So yeah, can we go to the next slide? So before we go in, I want to talk a bit about our technology and why does it make sense to use our tech to do something like observing the trends and predict the future. So I think like a lot of you had asked a question about the projectivity of news hubs. Like we all know that a lot of news hubs are politically influenced. So like when you want to do something like I want to search for tech trends in 2022 or predictions for the future, what you might do is go on Google and you search this and you might get an article. Or you can read a report by McKinsey that's 60 pages long, might take you 30 minutes. But that's just the time to go through the report. There's list of references that's being mentioned in the report. If you actually want to check all of them, it might take longer, and each of the references have other references. If you go into cross-referencing and fact-checking, it might take a lot of time. So our radar does this by doing all the lower level text processing so that we can save the time to focus on interpretation part. And by using NLP and AI technologies, you're actually able to digest tens of thousands of news or research papers or startup data, any sort of text information, and so all that information is presented to you on this map where you can sort of visualize so the lower level processing gives you the classification of information, and it extracts the main topics of these big clusters of documents, and will map out the relationship between these documents, and also do some time analysis so you can see throughout time what topics grow and what topics shrink. So I think like all that being said, it's a tool where it will enable anyone to do research on any corpus of documents, because information is out there. There's API where you can pull out news, you can pull out all sorts of text information, tens of thousands of them. There's just not enough time or tool for us to really analyze this unstructured data. Okay. So before we look into the radar, it's really important to understand the data that we use. So we actually created two radars through two different data sets. The first data set is the compilation of tech news. We've visualized 16,596 news published by the major tech news hubs in 2022. And we also created radar by visualizing all the startup data. And these are the startups that received funding in 2022. So as Rhoda mentioned, and as we all know, economy is slowing down and investors are becoming more discerning and where they put money to. So by visualizing the startups that actually received funding, we can have a sense of the collective intelligence of investors and to see what they believe has a future. So the news source is News API. It's a aggregator that pulls data from all the major and small blog news. So for this data set specifically, we looked at TechCrunch, Wired, and Mashable, because these are the most popular sources of tech news for the entire 2022 to date. And the result is 1,611 clusters. And this is the result of the radar. So by looking at the labels that you see summarize the key topics from the areas. And the areas are composed by clusters. So clusters are first being grouped into clusters. So each cluster, they share the same smaller topic, and the area shares bigger topic. And this entire radar is about tech news. So you can see the major topics summarizes the major trends, and the growing topics are the emerging trends. So the growing topics are throughout time, maybe in the beginning they're less mentioned, but throughout 2022, the popularity of this topic has grown. There's also the sparse areas. So the sparse areas are neither growing or major, but usually they are the part that connects the more popular topic. So if you look at this radar, we can see on like the right bottom side, this entire area are more sparse, as you can see the red. So this is a heated map. The red parts mean that it's higher density, and then the yellow gray is lower density. You can see there's like a river between the higher density and the lower density ones, or like a valley. And inside that valley, there's a lot of interesting newer emerging technologies such as cellular engineering, battery, healthcare. Those less tech focused. In the beginning, it's just information technology. Like we know Google, we know TikTok. These are all the information technology we're familiar with. But actually now it's expanding to other aspects of our society, like social sciences. And Jordan also mentioned environment. So in that like valley connecting NASA and the bigger information tech, in that valley we found also renewable energy and newer materials. So a lot of like newer things that's connecting these more established technology trends. So to summarize the trends, the emerging trends, the first one is metaverse, and also immersive internet experience, a virtual workspace. And the second one is gaming, which is also connected to metaverse. And the third one is space engineering, as you can see the NASA area. And then the fourth one is life science, social science, technology. That's like the area that I mentioned, that's connecting the IT and the other like robotics in space. So to dig deeper, I'll be talking about gaming first, because that's a more straightforward, and metaverse, which is the first trend, and also the immersive experience, is really interconnected with gaming, and you can also see it's almost a subcategory of gaming. And here we can search for keywords, which I did, and gaming is one of the top keywords on the radar, and along with metaverse, and you can see there's a lot of overlap, as gaming is the most notable use case of metaverse. So here, the cluster, the overview of cluster usually gives you the most representative information that tells you more about what this cluster is about, what this area is about. Because just by looking at gaming, that's not enough granular, that's not enough detailed information, so then we can go into see the overview of these clusters. And we can see that Netflix and Hulu, these video streaming companies, have a lot of acquisition activities where they really trying to bring gaming aspects into their service. And based on a research, so it's expected that in 2023, the gaming industry will acquire revenue of $223 billion, which is the size of video streaming, ebook, and digital music combined. So it makes sense why Netflix and Hulu are trying to get into gaming. And also Roblox is a famous metaverse. Interesting anecdote is that the fashion brand Gucci, they launched their virtual handbag in Roblox, and they sold it for $800 more than the retail price in real life. So people are actually willing to pay more money in metaverse. So the first trend is metaverse. This is the first trend because by the algorithm it was actually the top growing cluster. So we do some calculation and have some other functions that's not being shown here. So the top growing cluster is there's one cluster that contains Meta, Metaverse, Meta is the company Meta, and also Google. And okay, so I believe gaming is one like for me more familiar use case of Metaverse and these immersive experience, but also like Jordan also mentioned that hybrid workplace is a trend. So more working is moving to online, and so these technology are also being applied to building a virtual workspace, making it more interactive, more immersive. As this sample document from Board Cluster is Google's 3D video polling project Star Online is actually being tested in the real world, where you can see your coworkers as holograms. So that's like a representative sample from that area. And trend 3 and 4 tech is expanding from IT to space engineering, life science, social science, battery, and more. Like I mentioned, that one, like Little Valley, is a very interesting place to look at. This is connecting pretty much like 2 different verticals, and you're expecting to see more innovations there. So here are some like sample companies. Epsilon 3 is a startup that built the simulation of space launching. So you can actually simulate rocket launching through the software that really make space launching a lot more efficient. Yeah, also like incorporates the technology of AR. Okay, so the next readout will focus on startup activities, and this is a graph that's by Crunchbase. So based on an analysis of Crunchbase data, all founding stages were down this past month compared to a year ago. And seed founding dropped by a third, early stage topped, and late stages down by 80% compared to November 2021. You can see that founding is slowly going down, but not by that much. But which is why I want to like visualize the startups that receive funding. This is even more impactful in a way, because like when the investment is being more limited, and these are companies that still received money in the past year. So this is the overview of the data of the startup. So what we visualize are the startup descriptions. And on the side, you can see the breakdown of the number of clusters and the founding type. And you can see most of the foundings are pretty early stages, seed funding, Series A, pre-seed, angel. And so here, because these are already startups and these are companies that recently received early stage funding, we believe that the major trends is actually more predictive of the recent future. Maybe the emerging and the stars is really far ahead in the future. So I focus more on the major trends. And the first one, you can see the major area is property, homeowner, real estate agent. So if you click onto the major cluster, you can see that these are all online real estate investment marketplace. And the second one is insurance marketplace powered by AI. So it's an insurance where you can just go and compare different like auto, healthcare insurances, because there's so many different companies offering, and you can get the best deal. And also these zero code platform that helps you to launch your insurance programs easier. And the third one is cyber insurance, cyber security, and privacy regulation, compliance management, SaaS. as it's like a lot of software as service company focused on cybersecurity management. But more interestingly, there are a growing number of companies that focus on helping tech companies to comply with the growing regulations, the growing policies, the law by the government and using AI. And the fourth one is payment. So a lot of payment infrastructure and mobile payment. So I mean, in places like Asia, like in China, like nobody really carry out credit card or everyone just use mobile. And so there's a huge trend on different payment infrastructure and also mobile payment. And next we'll be looking at the representative sample from each of these trends. So trend one. So trend one is the online the retail real estate marketplace. This one is is advertised as buying and selling, like buying t-shirts. Yeah. And the second trend was insurance marketplace. So this one is so the marketplace is easy to understand, but this one in particular is an AI-powered insurance software that provides you the tools to launch and manage and optimize your insurance programs. Yeah. And the third trend was cyber insurance. So there's different type of cyber insurance. There's one that like the cyber security, trying to detect if there's any cyber security issues management type of tool. And there's also cyber insurance that helps you manage your crypto insurance, like crypto portfolio. That sort of insurance is emerging because a lot of organizations now have crypto assets. And the third type is what I mentioned, to help you comply with regulations. Yeah, and the fourth one is just payment, which is also easy to understand. But yeah, a lot of these are pretty much extracted directly from radar. There's very little of my own interpretation. I simply just interpret whatever on the radar and put it in a way that's easy to understand for everyone. And there's a lot more that we can, dive into, as there's many areas and topics we haven't dig into, and there's many other features that the radar provides, such as the center of gravity, and you can see throughout time how these different topics emerge, move towards each other, the movement of these different topics. Yeah, so that's my presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, we'll open up for questions, comments. Anyone?
Could you also see trends going the other way around, that being less popular comparing with 10 years ago, we talked less about VR,
Yes.
or could you also do that in the tool?
Yes, of course. So because we're just focused on 2022, and so we only pull the data for 2022, but I know we can pull data. Usually that's what we do. We'll look at a much wider time range for the past 10 years, 20 years. So we have could you go to the slide with the 6 line? Yeah, so you can see these arrows. So these are actually trend line indicates, so these are different sectors. This is healthcare, I believe, this is software, this is manufacturing. So you can see the movement, but because this is only 2022, so the movement is really small, it's pretty local. But if you look at a larger data set, then you can really see the shifts of the trend of these topics.
How long did it take you to do the analysis?
Sorry?
How long?
How long?
Yes.
So the data set was 10,000, 20,000, and it takes about 15, 20 minutes for the machine to finish running everything. So it's pretty fast.
about how long does it take to create a data set?
Created data
Yeah.
set. So we collaborate with Crunchbase and use API, so we already have the wrapper. It only takes 2 minutes,
Oh.
1 minute. Yeah.
So I was very surprised that one of the emerging trends wasn't generative AI. Maybe that's because that's all I spend my time doing, but I like literally I think half of what I've read on tech platforms and tech news is generative AI. So where's that in that? No, in the two pictures.
It's actually
back.
the gaming music artist. If you see that,
Not in this one, but in the other one, right?
this one. Here.
Is this the companies or is this the?
This is the startup one.
Right. So I'm
Yeah.
in the other, obviously in this as well, but.
Yeah. In the news one, yeah, I guess that's not one of the major trends, right? I mean, this.
Yeah, clearly.
Here is the NFT one. So the artist in generative AI is not extracted as the top 6, but maybe it's just like, it's lower on the list. Because this is really the high level, and the the generative AI is a subcategory. So if you create a smaller area here, it's definitely here. I think I've seen it. Yeah, it's just not being visible here.
Questions?
Any other questions?
From anyone else? Well, if not, then I guess we are now done with the discussion portion of our event. So I would like to thank everyone who has shown up on Zoom for attending as well. Thank you, Masaki, Edgar, Iona, and everyone else. And now we will continue on. We have catering. So there was pizza and Panda Express somewhere. We'll get that taken care of very shortly. So now it's time to mingle and network with others. We need to put on music or something, and then